You're watching the New Stack Makers, a podcast for people who develop, deploy, and manage at-scale software. For more information and articles about at-scale technologies, please visit thenewstack.io. Now enjoy the show.
KubeCon and CloudNativeCon conferences gather adopters and technologists to further the education and advancement of cloud-native computing. The vendor-neutral events feature domain experts and key maintainers behind popular projects like Kubernetes, Prometheus, Envoy, Core DNS, Containered, and more.
Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of the New Stack Makers podcast. And once again, it is time for KubeCon EU, which is happening 18th through 21st in April in Amsterdam. For those who know KubeCon, it will have many of the same things that make KubeCon great. The keynotes will feature CNCF head Priyanka Sharma and Chris Anachek, and in addition, we will there'll be a lot of new people there as well. So to help us kind of get a handle on what's happening in the event, we have two folks who were both chaired the KubeCon proceedings. To help us make sense of KubeCon, we have two co-chairs of the event. One is Aparna Subramanian, who is a director of production engineering for the infrastructure at Shopify, and also Frederick Kautz, who is a cloud-native infrastructure and security enterprise architect. Welcome both.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right. Fantastic. So first of all, I would like to ask each one of you guys, how did you first get involved in Kubernetes?
Yeah, I've been a long time user of Kubernetes. I started my Kubernetes journey in 2016, worked on consuming Kubernetes as a technology, and then I helped launch VMware Townsville. I was one of the founding members back when I was at VMware. And currently I'm with Shopify, where I'm director of production engineering, and I'm responsible for the platform that runs and supports all of our merchants. And in this role, I had the opportunity to get involved in the end user space of Kubernetes, and I'm co-lead for the CNCF end user developer experience SIG. And that was how I got introduced to the community and got to know people in the community.
All right, fantastic. Frederick, how did you get drawn into the Kubernetes orbit?
So before Kubernetes was a thing, I was involved with Docker. So I had commit access to Docker before it was publicly released, and was doing a whole bunch of work with it at the time period, begging people to try it out, being told, "Oh no, this will never run in production." Fast forward about a year later, I think it was. They had one of the Docker cons. They did the announce of Kubernetes at that particular time. And so my initial involvement of getting involved with the community was centered around that time period. Since that time, I've been able to focus on a wide variety of topics, some of them related towards storage, some of them related towards networking. Primary focus now is primarily on security-oriented things, but there's so much to do as well, so it's a fun space.
Now, so what does it mean when you become, what are the obligations involved when you become a chair for KubeCon?
Yeah, so co-chairs play a very important role in putting together the event itself. We are responsible for defining the content vision, choosing the talks with the help of an amazing program committee and a whole team of track chairs. So we put together the agenda, and we get to make the final decision on which talks are accepted. We certainly take into consideration a lot of different things when making the decision, of course. Number of talks per speaker, talks per company, overall gender diversity, and we also make sure there's a mix of novel, innovative content, enough coverage on hot topics, and enough of the community content. And we also strive to balance the experience level within each track. We want to make sure there's a mix of beginner and advanced level content for our audience. We also work one-on-one with all of the keynote speakers, reviewing all aspects of their presentation to make sure that the messaging at the conference is cohesive and resonates with the attendees.
Perfect. Is there a particular theme for this year's EU conference?
Fred, do you want to?
Yeah, not really I guess the best way to pull a theme on. Let me restart on this. So, in terms of a theme, the theme that we chose was community in bloom. We wanted to focus on the community. Like we're still healing from COVID. We're getting back to a point where people are getting comfortable to show up to these type of events again, especially with KubeCon as large as it is. So part of what we want to do is highlight the things that are going on in the community and the strength and resiliency of the community towards continuing to build not just Kubernetes, but also working together to build a whole ecosystem and really put a spotlight on those efforts.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd add that major themes, as we were reviewing the talks, security is always quite popular and it continues to be popular. We saw a lot of FinOps, efficiency, and focus on sustainability. WASM and eBPF are quite hot, continue to be hot. And as always, running at scale and lessons learned from running things in production is quite popular.
All right, fantastic. Let's step back a moment. Now, you both were around when Kubernetes was in its exciting development days a few years back. But we're starting to see at the new stack interest from the enterprise environment for those organizations that might not have been using it from the start. What in your both of your opinions? What is the usefulness of Kubernetes and the whole cloud native ecosystem for today's environment?
In my opinion, the biggest value of Kubernetes and cloud native technologies in the enterprise is how much of a head start you get with it. We are not building a generic platform, but rather a platform for our business, for our domain, in a way that delivers most impact where it matters. And cloud native has enabled that sort of feature velocity and developer velocity. So with all of these technologies, enterprises are now able to build loosely coupled systems and are able to go to the market much faster and able to build resilient, observable systems.
So I can use an example from the telecom user group. And granted, telecom is very different from enterprise, but one of the things that they were looking for was primarily how do you get a common set of tooling around where you can have some assurance that that tooling will work across different environments, different locations, and to have for lack of a better phrase, to have like an operating system like approach where you have a common set of APIs so that the development teams don't have to learn 10, 15, 20 different ways, like how do I install each application? How do I manage each application? Instead, it becomes, here's a specific path, the pattern if you follow, then your operations teams don't have to reason about each individual application by themselves. Not to say that that abstract has been eliminated entirely, of course, or let me rephrase, not that that's been abstracted all the way, but it does give some common ground, some common tooling that you can get reuse of a lot of your work. And when you start to scale up to really large enterprises, turns out that matters a lot because from an automation perspective, it allows for a significant reduction in cost and higher capabilities for teams.
Fantastic. To get back to the event itself, were there any major changes in the program? Or well, I know that co-located conferences were, I think, cut back to 1 day from 2. Is there anything new that regular attendees might be surprised by?
So Let me start off on this one. So the first thing that you'll notice, is, especially with the 0 days, is we used to have the Cloud Native Security 0 Day, which was a 2-day event. That's actually turned into its own conference now, and we had our first one last February. The videos for those, if you're interested, are all posted on YouTube. So definitely feel free to look at that. But we still have a very strong security theme. It's still a very and especially when we look at the different types of users. So we have in the Cloud Native Security Conference, we ended up with a lot of developers, and in KubeCon, we get a lot of end users who show up. So there's still a large interest in security side. So we now have a new security village. That's probably our biggest thing. And it's sort of like a side-by-side, like in a conference embedded in a conference, that you can come and go as you please and see things that are related to that topic. And for us, it's an experiment at this particular point. We're going to see how it goes, and if it works really well, it may change how KubeCon is done in the future.
We are also very excited about Contrib Fest. It's happening again in Amsterdam after a very successful debut in Detroit. It's a great opportunity for contributors to meet with fellow contributors and potentially new contributors and work together in the same space. So really excited.
So that worked out really well at KubeCon Detroit, which was the last KubeCon in the U.S. in October.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. It was very successful.
All right. Fantastic. So did the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, the organizers behind KubeCon, did they offer a number about how many people they are expecting to attend in person?
Yeah, I believe they're expecting 9,000 plus people in person.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I guess the European Union almost rivals, or pretty much rivals, the U.S. when it comes to interest in Kubernetes. Then
I would definitely say so. They're definitely on par with each other. Of course, different communities, different needs. Like, one of the things I found really interesting on the EU side is that because of new laws that are going into place in the EU, there's now a very strong set of talks that were submitted for privacy related topics. And it's like, well, what does privacy have to do with KubeCon, or with Kubernetes? But it's like, you have to also consider that the operation of running things that are running on information that should be private is very much also an operational aspect of it. Like, where can I run it? How do I tag and label? So there's a whole bunch of information of interesting things, and also on sustainability as well. That there's also other laws coming in place for sustainability, and it's the same set of questions. Like, how do we make sure that the things we're building can rise to the challenge for these communities?
Yeah, and I'll add that we also like to amplify voices in the local region. So while the content itself is similar, we see this as an opportunity so that they can hear from attendees and present solutions, to them from people who are closer to their focus areas.
All right, fantastic. I know you guys are co-chairs, but when we've had Priyanka on in the past, we've always asked her what are some of the fun extracurricular activities for those going to the show that Amsterdam can offer. Does anything come to mind for either one of you, or things that restaurants you'd like to attend, or that sort of thing?
I will say that part of the reason we chose the term community in bloom is because in that time of year, there are a large number of I think, tulips that bloom in the entire area. And it is well worth booking some time in one of the large gardens to go and experience that while you're there.
Yeah, and in terms of extracurricular activity, the one that I'm looking forward to is the Cube Crawl and Cloud Native Fest. So we've combined the welcome reception, the booth crawl, and the all attendee party into an evening of fun. It's on Wednesday, April 19th.
Nice. All right, fantastic. Well, let's get into the nitty gritty. I'm very curious about the new technologies and new concepts that will be unveiled at the conference. So what will we be watching for during the keynotes?
Definitely watch to see how the community itself is maturing. The technologies are maturing. We believe that will definitely come through in the keynotes. And we'll also get to see how some of the more advanced use cases of Kubernetes are evolving, and how end users are actually using it successfully in their production environments. Fred, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And the earliest KubeCons and also DockerCons as well were always focused on developers and on engineers. And one of the major shifts, and I continue to see it head in this direction, is to get into the question of how do I actually operationalize this for my space, for my context. And that's a lot more uh, it, like, yes, we do have things like, okay, you can go spin up GKE or EKS or similar, but we start looking at large enterprises, even something like let's go spin up GKE. There's still a whole bunch of additional things that have to get added on top of such a system in order for it to comply with all of the operational and security requirements that are there. So I'm expecting for these type of things to continue to trend as people try to really grasp what does it mean to run from a small team running some small number of teams running Kubernetes to, like, how do we actually do this at scale for a large organization where Kubernetes becomes commoditized across the organization.
Excellent, excellent. All right, fantastic. Well, my favorite part of KubeCon is always the technical sessions, and I know you guys were co-chairing and looking at the presentations. Any sort of hints as to, I know you love all the sessions, but any hints to what ones we should, what topics we should keep an eye out for in particular? What talks maybe?
We shared the general themes, like the most popular themes earlier. And in terms of new areas of technology itself, how we saw GitOps was quite popular. I mean, definitely continues to be popular. Again, FinOps, efficiency, sustainability is a theme. So there are lots of interesting talks in that area. And IDPs, like developer platforms, are popular. So I think that's definitely something to watch out for. Fred?
I always recommend people go check out the lightning talks. They're a fast way to get a lot of really dense but highly curated information, and also gives you a name to a face, so you can go talk with those individuals afterwards as well. There are also some really good talks on how to build communities. And what's interesting with communities, a lot of people think, oh, open source communities are different from any other community. But at the end of the day, they're about people. And techniques that work well within an open source community may end up working well with how you run an internal team in your organization, because ultimately they focus on the people themselves, the individuals. So if I were to pick two, granted they're not necessarily deep dives into the technical aspects of it, I would definitely recommend both topics.
Terrific, fantastic. Now, Aparna, you had mentioned IDPs, internal developer platforms. And we've been seeing a lot of interest in platform engineering of late. How does that interact with Kubernetes and the cloud native environment? I know Kubernetes is always, I remember last year there was a big challenge on making the developer experience more seamless with Kubernetes. Is this kind of an evolution of that?
Yeah, definitely. I certainly believe that the rise of platform engineering shows the greater maturity in the cloud native ecosystem. And in my opinion, it's a best practice that several advanced end users have already adopted. And platform engineering enables organizations to create the right interface between infrastructure and applications, so that application developers and data scientists they don't have to worry about the deployment details. And in my experience, it takes a lot of time to figure out what that right interface is between infrastructure and application. And most end users that I've talked to have started out with exposing too much to the application developers, and they're now refactoring their platform and dialing it back. So this is definitely a very happening area, and it's essential to operate an efficient platform and continuously evolve the platform to keep up with the technology without disrupting or creating toil for application developers.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I'll put you guys on the spot. You had mentioned, Frederick, you had mentioned eBPF, I believe. That's the extended Berkeley packet filter. It's basically a way to instrument directly from the Linux kernel itself. What promise does that hold for Kubernetes environments? How can you use that?
I will start off by saying that eBPF is already very much a part of the core infrastructure for actually running Kubernetes. So, in terms of securing the system calls, historically those were not they were not granular enough, and eBPF gave us a path to limit things to a more granular and safe way. That being said, there's some really interesting trends that are coming along that take us well beyond that. So on one side, we see a lot of use in networking, which is the more obvious approach. More work on the security side in terms of continuing to filter out what people can or cannot do, or what applications can and cannot do. But we're also seeing observability really kick it up as well. So there's new projects coming along that tie into the observability. And what's interesting with it, for people who are not familiar with eBPF, just to give us a short bit of information about it, you can think of it like a miniature virtual machine that sits in the kernel that has certain entry points, and you can put arbitrary code in there that's designed to stay sandboxed in that. So it provides a really nice set of hooks so that you're able to get efficiently in and out of that sandbox, but still maintain that security. So you can see things like this, where if you want to install arbitrary behavior to increase your observability, or you want to further restrict something on the security side, then it becomes a very powerful tool for that. That being said, I'm also expecting there to be other aspects of eBPF that we have to learn how to grapple with. And so one side of it is there's a lot of complexity. There's still a lot of tooling that needs to be built in order to make that easier. And there's a lot of work going on to that. A second part is we're also seeing the beginnings of eBPF malware.
Wow.
And so one of the questions then becomes, is how do we detect eBPF malware? How do we detect when your observability starts to lie to you? And so we have to have ways to tell what is installed. So we're starting to see a real increase in the maturity of the tooling and the ability to tell what is installed from the eBPF side in order to help us not only build interesting technologies, but also to make sure that those interfaces and functions are not being abused.
All right, fantastic. So KubeCon is a great place to learn about adjacent cloud native technologies. Like last year, we saw a lot of WebAssembly. The year before, GitOps. Are there any new kind of emerging concepts that either one of you are seeing that have caught your eye that will be in this year's program?
I'm always interested on the security side. One of the things that I've personally been involved with for quite a while is projects like Spiffy that are designed to get a cryptographic identity for every workload. So your identity is not IP address and port; it's now a X509 certificate that you can use to prove who you are and establish secure connections to other systems. But once you have something like that, the impact of such a system can be quite profound, because now you can build a whole bunch of additional security controls around it in terms of your policy and your observability and automation. So there's things like that, but I want to be careful not to just single out that one out. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other interesting projects that some of them are graduated, like Prometheus, and you have others that are just getting started, like you have the Dapper project for API management, and so there's there's way too many. Like I can't even tell you the total number of projects that are out there in the ecosystem. Like there's a lot of place to really find what you're interested in and to contribute if that's something that you're looking to get into.
Yeah, another theme that you can expect, and that's quite a hot topic, is like continuous profiling. It's like the fourth pillar of observability, as some call it. So there's definitely lots of talks and lots
Continuous
of content
profiling. That's, I guess, to build up a kind of a set of expected behaviors from a system, and then I guess you could use that when something goes awry. You could flag it. Huh, I hadn't heard that before. That's fascinating. The fourth pillar. All right, fantastic. So the next question, of course, is as we're all enjoying Amsterdam, has KubeCon picked its next location for KubeCon EU for 2024? Can you reveal that?
We'll have to wait until it gets announced on stage.
Usually that's on the Friday keynote or one of the keynotes later. So, all right, fantastic. Oh, those are the questions I had. Are there any other takeaways before we wrap up this podcast?
I do have one, which is I mentioned about communities, and there are very interesting tie-ins with other communities that are occurring. So, for example, in the security side, there's work going on with various standards groups and similar to provide better information with controls, work with the Open SSF community in order to help secure the things that we're doing. And the same goes with other groups, like there's the Telecom user group and Cloud Native function working group. And you pick any given community, there are almost always tie-ins with things that go well above and beyond what the Linux Foundation or CNCF are doing. So when we talk about community, like community really is our strength. It's something that we have to continue to foster and continue to get better at, because there's definitely room for improvement, but the things that we do here have impact that is like well above and beyond Kubernetes and the adjacent cloud native projects that you see.
Yeah, I'll add that there are a number of opportunities for end users to connect with each other. And as an end user myself, I can say that I learn best when I am meeting with people and learning from their experiences. So there's definitely lots of opportunities, and please do take advantage of those. And we co-chairs are looking forward to engage with the conference attendees and learn from your experience so we can continuously improve the event itself. So please do stop by and chat with us.
Fantastic. Aparna and Frederick, thank you so much for taking time to get us up to speed on what to expect from KubeCon. And again, this is 18th through the 21st of April in Amsterdam. And I know the New Stack will be doing some podcast recording on site. So stop by and say hello to us as well. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We'll see you shortly.
If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on all the major social media platforms. You can always find us at thenewstack.io. We hope to see you soon.